All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Thinking Man Business Lab podcast. Today we have the honor and the privilege of having the great man himself, and it's in his name, Alexander the Great Volkanovski, the world champion, the champ himself. Welcome to the podcast, mate. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Thanks for
Yeah,
the intro, mate. It always sounds good. World champ.
yeah.
That's always good. As a little reminder.
A little reminder. That's right. How does it feel sometimes when you get called the champ? Do you sometimes have to still pinch yourself, or you just know you're the champ now and you're confident with that moniker?
Yeah. Look, obviously, I know I'm the champ, but I'm the type of guy that, I am. A lot of people say, "Hey, so down to earth," but I am. Once I'll win the belt one day. The next day I'm back home, and I'm with the family, and I'm just dad. You know what I mean? So it's good. It keeps me down to earth or like humble, as people would say, or whatever. Like it just again, like when I come home, I'm daddy. My girls, as I always say, my girls don't care that I'm a world champ. They're
That's
going to
right.
still wake me up 5 in the morning. They're still going to make me do whatever they want, change the nappies and do whatever it is. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I am home and I'm just me. But obviously, when you're out and about, you're reminded that you're still the champion. And it's good. It is a good feeling because again, I try and keep myself at a good level. But it's good to sometimes get that feeling, like to know all that hard work is paying off. Especially when you're out and about. So it means a lot.
It doesn't take long, does it? It's like the same for me from a corporate world. It's like you get in a board meeting and you're in front of 20 people and you're talking or whatever. When you get back home, your kids, it doesn't matter who you are. It's like, Dad, I want a chocolate. Nothing matters. Or no, you can't have that. And you've got a 5-year-old telling you what to do, and you're the champion of the world. It's funny.
Yeah. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's exactly how it is. And
Yeah,
a lot, yeah, again, even when I'm at the gym, I'm just another customer in the gym. You know what I mean? I'm not better than no one at the gym. That's just who I am. That's how I try and keep myself. I try and remind myself I'm not better than no one. But at the same time, you got to know that you are the champ, and there are some expectations with things, and obviously, but at the same time, again, I'm not better than anyone. I'm still cleaning the gym, mate. I'm still over there and vacuuming the
good on you.
floors.
Yeah, good
Joe
on you.
Joe Lopez, my head coach, Master Splinter, he
Yeah,
don't care that I'm a world champ. He's going to make me clean them floors anyway. But again, that's just how it is. When you get into the gym, nothing but respect
yeah.
and hard work, and that's what I'm all about.
I remember Joe back in the day not letting me into nightclubs because I drank too much back in the day when I was 22 and 23. Back when some of the nightclubs were pretty harsh on that sort of stuff. So, and I probably shouldn't have gone in some of those days, but I still remember his face. And then I see it all of a sudden on the UFC coaching you. And mate, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. He's been around Wollongong for a long time too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's been a few people that have said that to me, like when I'm talking to them, like, "Oh, yeah, remember, yeah, one time he kicked me out of this, kicked me out of this nightclub and whatnot." So he's well known around the area for kicking people out of nightclubs. But we all get drunk, we all get silly sometimes, so
That's
obviously we're going to get
right.
kicked out sometimes.
And we all get old enough to realise that we made some of those mistakes. So, what about you growing up? You grew up in the Illawarra the whole time. Is that where you were based for the most of your life?
Yeah, yeah, man. I've always been in Illawarra. When I was younger,
Yeah,
and yeah, I've always been Mount Warrigal. Then I lived in Mount Warrigal, and now I'm still in the Illawarra area. So I love this place, man. I leave it. I've got my gym. You know what I mean? I've got my family. I've got everything I need here, and I love it here. It's a beautiful place,
it is.
and it's got everything I need.
Yeah, it's amazing. I just sold the place in Mount Warrigal actually 2 weeks ago. That's funny that you say that. It's a beautiful. Even Mount Warrigal is a beautiful
Okay.
place. You've got the lake and the ocean. It's and everything's close. You've got the PCYC down there. There's places to train. So,
Hmm.
with your first training, did you do wrestling as a youngster? Did you do any of that sort of stuff when you were younger? What sort of inspired you to start? I know you played rugby league and you love rugby league, but did you ever do anything as a youngster?
Yeah. Well, I did wrestle. Yes, I wrestled. That I played soccer, and I think I wrestled before I played rugby league. But martial arts, even though I wasn't training for it or anything, it's always been a passion of mine before I even really knew much about it. It's just I don't know. Is it the Macedonian in my Greek blood? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
The Spartans, whatever it is. But it's always been something that I felt I was meant to do something like, martial arts. But then I wrestled and I was quite good at it. So, even just wrestling with your brother and being young and silly, obviously, I've always been good at that type of stuff. You know what I mean? So it was something that I've always knew I was going to eventually get into, I guess. Well, I told myself I would. But you know what I mean? Even when I was playing rugby league and all that, I was committed to rugby league. But I always had in the back of my mind, I always watch UFC events and all things like that, or martial arts, or boxing, whatever it is. And I've always just loved it and said, I even said I'm going to be a world champion one day. And I wasn't even training at the time.
Yeah.
So it's something that, but whether every kid, has that sort of in their head growing, I thought I could do even before I was even training. So again, I've just always loved martial arts, everything about it. So wrestling was a big part, such a big part of it, MMA as well. So the wrestling base was really good for my football background, and obviously, I fight now. So it's a very good base to have. So I'm glad I took that on.
So how did you get that one across to parents? Because I know, obviously, I've got woke parents as whatever. They told me to stay away from cricket bats and hard cricket balls and rugby league, and that's not for you, mate. That's not for you. You play soccer. You play soccer. You play soccer. Was that a hard thing for you to get into rugby league, for them to sort of come over, or were they always cool about that sort of stuff?
Oh, they're always funny with it, but they'll never. They'll always again, they'll sort of let us be. They're always pretty easy with us.
Yeah.
So they'll never like, nah, you can't do it. But, obviously when I mentioned to it, it was like, what do you mean? Like, obviously they would want to change my mind.
Yeah.
But they're never going to just stop me from doing what I wanted to do. So they're always pretty supportive that way. And I wouldn't say supportive. Obviously, you don't want to see your son getting punched in the face. And that's fair enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, exactly right. So you understand that, but I mean, again, at the time, like even when I was playing rugby league, they were a bit like, "Oh, what rugby league? What are you doing?" Like, because my dad played soccer, my brother played soccer, and I played soccer, but I wanted to play football with the mates, and I got over wearing tights when I used to wrestle, so I was like, "Oh, you know what? I'll play football with the mates." So that's what I did. But yeah, they're always a little funny with it, but they're always like, "All right, if that's what you want to do, go on then." So there you go.
That's awesome. I can contend with that, how tough it is sometimes with that sort of stuff. But you got through it. You played rugby league at a very high level, because obviously the South Coast League is a very, even now to this day, it's a I would say semi-professional almost league. It's high quality league. Do you still follow it? Do you still keep up with it from time to time?
Yeah, I try to. Obviously over the years, I've been in this sport for now almost 10 years. So, through the years, I'll make sure I'm keeping an eye and keeping up to date with a lot of it.
Yeah.
I still had a lot of mates playing. So, they're obviously a lot of them are not playing anymore, but I still try and support the local. They're really gorillas.
Yeah.
So I always try and stay up to date when I can. But yeah, obviously it's a bit harder to get down to the games and that, because I keep busy and I'm training. I even train the weekends, and then obviously, you got, you want to spend time with the family and all that, especially when I'm away for so long and I come back and just time gets away with you sometimes. But again, like, it's something that I've always keep up to date with. But I'm not there at the footy grounds every week like I used to be. But I mean, again, I'm always going to support and cheer for the boys, the Rilla Gorillas. So it was good. But yeah, like you said, it was always it was semi-professional, and I played a lot of rep sides, and it was something I was pretty good at. So a lot of people thought I was mad when I decided to give that up and take on MMA. So like, it was, it's funny I did that, because a lot of, especially locally, I was one of the main players. I got Mick Cronin medal, and not to toot my own horn, but I did pretty good. And again, a lot of people are like, "Why would you give this up? This is something you're really good at." But I just thought I could be better at MMA, and I'm a pretty competitive type of guy. So I was like, you know what? I think I can go all the way. I sort of knew I wasn't going to make it all the way in rugby league. At UFC, even though I started late, I still thought I could do it. And it's pretty crazy to see where I'm at right now.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So you started that, you made the transition, and as hard as it is, especially when you got mates in your ears, and it's a team mentality. It's also really hard, because you've been with these guys for such a long period of time, to say, hey, I'm no longer doing this. So then you started in the UFC, not in the UFC, I guess, mixed martial arts, because you don't just start off in the UFC. How hard were those first couple of years in transition, the training, the cutting the weight, because we've obviously all seen that photo of you playing footy that gets shown around all the time, and cutting weight, and then understanding where your ideal weight's going to be, where you want it to fight, what at what level did you want to fight, as in weight, size, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it was my last year of football. I had a couple of fights, so my weight come down a little bit because I was fighting as well. So I was around the high 80s. So I used to play at my heaviest was 90 plus, like 97 and that. So I was always 90 plus kilos. But then my last year of football, I started cutting a bit of weight, had a couple of fights, and that wasn't too bad. Like I could still hold my own, even with the couple of kilos lighter. But it was the transition was pretty easy, man. I'm pretty committed. You put something in front of me, and I'm going to take it on. I'm going to be committed to it. That's just how I am. Even with football, if I had to be out training, I'll be out training. If you're going to give me the ball, I'm going to run straight at the big guys as hard as I can. If I've got a job to do, I'm going to do it. So I've always been like that, and just it's funny you touched on like the team sport to now obviously fighting in the octagon and that sort of different. That's something that always was something that I always noticed that I thought was cool as well. So when you're in a team and all that, again, like I could have a bad day. I could have one of the worst games of my life and let my team down, and vice versa. I could have the best game of my life and and still lose a game and things like that. So it's not all about you. Again, like you could let the team down, the team could sort of let you down type thing. And what I love about being in the cage is the fact that it's all on me. Even though it is still a team, I've got a team, training partners, a coach, a nutritionist, now it is still a team sport, but at the same time, it's me in there. So I'm going to put the hard yards in. And if I go out there and don't perform or don't do what I'm meant to do, that's on me. And that's something that I've always loved about, competing, in either boxing or UFC, even at a young age. I think it's always something that, was intriguing to me. And even now, again, like I'm known to be a hard worker, especially in the gym. And I've just always been like that. And to know that how effective that could be in my performance. And again, like it's all on me. So I need to be fit while I'm in I know I'm going to get fit. I know I'm going to do all the 1%ers. I know I'm going to do whatever I need to do to be 100% for that fight. And if I half-ass it, that's on me. I'm going to let myself down, not anyone else. And that's what I like about it. But lucky for me, I don't ever want to let myself down. And it's not just that, because really, I say that, it's not really about just letting myself down. I lose, I'm letting my family down, Australia down. So it is much bigger than that. But at the same time, I've got no one else to blame but me.
Sure. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes plenty of sense. And I think when we start talking about the 1%ers, we've obviously got a lot of people here that are in business and talk about business. I think that transcends into any aspect of your life. If you're going to be committed to something, you've got to be committed to it 100%. And those 1%ers, people know that in business, the difference between the people that are going to do a good job for you, the people that are going to do a bad job. I'm sure it's the same thing with you with sponsors or with anything like that. The ones that are fully committed to the Alex Volkanovski camp, and the ones that aren't, if that makes sense. So it's one of those things that people in business can really learn from sports stars, from a commitment perspective, that they're up at 5:30. We don't see that you're up at 5:30. We just see you holding the gold and think, okay, that's cool. It's the world champ, but we don't see the hard yards. You still vacuuming the gym floor, all that sort of stuff. Still staying humble, still saying, hey, having respect for the cleaner and having respect for the CEO, all at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. And as you say, like even in life, so a lot of these things that I live by in the gym, again, when it comes to commitment and hard working, and I always talk about adapting to what's in front of me and things like that. Like through all these experiences of training, and I always say there's a couple of phrases I like to use: being comfortable in uncomfortable positions, and just things like that. All these things that I feel have been so effective for me in my sport, I use in everyday life, whether it would be business, whether it would be, just whatever it is, just through life. These are a lot of things. Like there's going to be challenges, no matter what you are. If you are in business, if you know what I mean, like what do we do? Do we try and shy away and hopefully it just walks away, or are we going to try and adapt to this situation and make it work and things like that. So, and this just works on your everyday sort of a life as well. So a lot of these things that I use in the octagon makes me a hard worker, makes me where I am today. It's as a person, you know what I mean? I believe it's made me, you know, obviously you wouldn't say untouchable or anything like that, but, you know, I feel like it's making me a lot stronger in the real world as well, not just in the cage. So I believe that, you know, experience goes a long way. And, you know, exactly these experiences I've used through life, whether it is in sport, I use them in my everyday life.
Yeah, it's obvious. And it's great that they're all transferable skills. And any sports stars, we've had a lot of NRL guys and boxing guys here before. That's one of the things that they talk about, that's a real transferable skills. The hard work doesn't go away because they're used to working hard, and that's why they sometimes get bored when they're still not working harder, when they've got 10 hours a day to kill, and there's nothing to do, and they need something to put it into. So, you know, anyone that's listening, put it into a business, give it 10 hours a day, see how you go, guys. And it's not, you've already got the work ethic, which is the hardest part, you know. And what I always say to people is I've seen a lot of talented people, as in naturally gifted, and I'm sure you've seen this in rugby league or whether it's UFC. Sometimes the most naturally gifted don't make it to the top. You know, it's you say it all the time, because they just don't work hard enough, because they've always had it easy.
Mate, you see it time and time again. You know, that goes a long way. A lot of people always ask me when I you know, a lot of people starting, or even like when I'm doing podcasts, and they'll ask, you know, if you could talk to someone just getting into the MMA, you know, what would be something you'd tell them? You know what I mean? Like, you know, a lot of people might expect me to talk about, oh, yeah, get into, you know, wrestling, learn these skills or whatever it is. Like, I always bring it down to, like, I believe what's helped me so much, and like the people that I feel always go a long way, and that, you know, the people that are committed and, you know, go the extra mile. You know, the people that go extra mile, I believe, are always a little more successful and you know, reach their goals. I believe, especially in, like, from what I've seen in the gym. And, you know, so I usually, like, try and tell them is, like, I try and, like, word it better, but in the quick way, sort of accept being uncomfortable type thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Accept that, you know, when you're training, don't try and be like, oh, that's a hard session, I don't want to do it. Get it over and done with early. You know what I mean? Make it. So when I say that, like, it's going to be hard. Yeah. But, you know, if you want to commit to this sport, you're going to have to eventually do it. So if you start trying to shy away, looking for ways around things, and just to make you know, the process easier, that's going to be who you are going into your future, you know, UFC self or whatever it is. You know what I mean? For me, it's just like, I don't have to try and work hard. I'm just a hard worker. It's just all I know. I am a hard worker, plain and simple. So for me, doing that forever, I can't not work hard, if you get what I mean. So I might feel crap one day, you know, not feel well. Like, I wouldn't say not feel well, but I feel like, man, like, I'm struggling today. But, like, tell myself, that's all right. Once you get warm, you'll be sweet. And then start going. I look at the numbers on the whatever it is, assault bike, and I know I can do better because I've seen better numbers before. Yeah, I'm just like, I have to just try and get them. I still, you know what I mean? I can't not. I could easily. Sure. No one's watching. The coach is around the corner. I could easily get away with this. Yeah, but I know. You know what I mean? It's just not who I am. Now I'm the person that's always going to do my best. You know, I've made that who I am. So it just makes things a lot easier. A lot easier. You know what I mean? And again, the hardest thing for this career for me, you know, what I believe in, what most people, preparation for, you know, preparing yourself for that fight. Fighting's easy. Getting in the octagon's easy. Preparation and getting yourself ready for that fight. You know what I mean? I want to be the best version of myself. So that means I need to be the fittest I can be. I need to be the sharpest I can be. I need to be on weight. You know what I mean? I need to eat good. So there's so many things that come into play. And, you know what I mean? So it's hard work. But again, like, you know, now it's just, I don't know, I can't do it any other way except the right way, the way it needs to be done. Yeah. And again, I refuse to do it any other way. So I believe that, that's something, that's a long way. See, that's a sort of better way of explaining it, going into real detail, but accept being uncomfortable, accept that you are going to get uncomfortable, and then just, you know, get it out of the way. And then you will slowly get used to it.
Awesome. That's great advice for everyone listening, I'm sure. And it's one of those things that we all we all can all talk about it, and sometimes it comes through as anxiety, sometimes it comes through as something else. But just get ready for that uncomfortableness, and you'll get better every time. Like you said, the numbers will come up, the the performance will come up. Just like when you started, it must have been tough on you and your family, because there wouldn't have been a lot of money when you first started fighting MMA. There wouldn't have been, you probably would have been burning more money than you would have been making just on your training and making sure that you're getting ready and getting fit and having all the right nutrition and all that money. And there wouldn't have been sponsors on board at the start. So how did you get through that first stage where you were still working a job at the start of your UFC career, or not your UFC, your MMA career?
Yeah, even UFC, man. That's what a lot of people, they think you get in the UFC, you're a millionaire. Like, honestly, that's what a lot of people think. And it ain't like that. I was still struggling. I was still doing concrete in here and there while I was in the UFC. And, obviously, it's different to most sports. So this sport, again, it's very big, like obviously worldwide, it's one of the biggest, like it's growing as one of the biggest sort of sports in the world. But at the same time, financially, it's, the athletes aren't as, financially sort of capable as a lot of athletes, especially at the highest level. Like, don't get me wrong, once you get to the top, that does change. But it was tough. It was definitely tough. And especially fighting the local scene on the local shows, you know what I mean? Trying to be committed to the sport, but like literally barely any income at all, relying on sponsors. And then obviously sponsors, it was pretty hard to come by. But again, sponsors went a long way, but just having the support from the family and the wife is a big deal. So you could imagine the pressure. You can imagine the pressure on the family, and especially the wife, while I'm chasing this dream, and she's working. I'm trying to work here and there, and commit to this sport. But I mean, it's again, it was definitely tough. It was definitely tough. But again, we seen the end goal, and we knew we were going to make it. I knew I was going to get there. But that's why now every time you win and all that, people ask, what's it feel like when you got the UFC call, or when you win and all this, or when you win the belt, mate? Relief, all this hard work, all this time, and relief. Finally, no more pressure. I can give back to my family. It's just so much bigger than me just winning a belt. You know what I mean? There's so much more than that. It was crazy. And even now, like, don't get me wrong, obviously things are changing. They're getting better. But I mean, it wasn't that long ago where I still needed to fight. I was like getting ranked. I was ranked in my division, and I still, needed to fight, like to make money. I still wasn't, so that just shows you sort of where it's at, which a lot of people probably don't understand that until they hear it from the horse's mouth. So it's pretty, it's a crazy journey. But again, like, I was committed, and I knew I was going to get there because I had the support from the family. And, and even obviously, luckily, I had my dad in the concrete business as well. Yeah. So my dad was running the concrete, so he still gave me a bit of freedom. I could still make sure I trained in certain days if I have to have a week off for fight week. And he really did help with that. So that helped me a lot. So I was lucky in that way. But again, it's just, it was quite a journey. But
yeah, I bet. So what's it like having like a rock at home, and you talk about your training and all that sort of stuff. What's it like having your wife, Emma, as a rock at home to look after the kids while you're away for these long times, which are obviously very difficult, but it must be very satisfying for you to know that she's 100% in your corner.
Oh, mate, that's exactly right. It's hard enough. For me, again, as you said, like at the start of the episode, you can tell I'm a family man. That's all. I'm doing this for my family. Again, I do love this sport. I'm lucky I'm in a sport that I love. But at the same time, this is my career, the career path I chose. And, and this is how I make my money. This is how I make my bread. So that's how I look at it. I don't look at this as a bit of fun or whatnot. I look at this to be able to look after my family. And, being away from him hurts, but I know I'm doing it for my family. But to have that support from the wife, to know that, go out there. There's a lot of times where she's telling me, no, you need to go here, you need to do this. Like, she'll even, like, know that because a lot of times I'll like try and, no, I won't worry about that. Like, because I don't want to leave the family again, or, whether it's like, we're struggling with training partners here. Do I go to New Zealand for a bit of the camp for a couple of weeks? So she'll be like, I think you should go over there if you're struggling with a couple of training partners, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So you get what I'm going with that. So it goes a long way. It helps a lot because, I probably wouldn't have done, I won't do that. I won't do that to my family unless, I know, she's okay with it. And, she usually lets me know. She goes, "No, you need to do this. We'll be fine. Just go out there and do that."
Yeah,
That helps a lot.
Almost like the unsung heroes of the camp, really. They might not be at the training sessions, but they're doing everything that you can't do at home for them. So that's brilliant. So let's talk about you. What's happening? You've got this book now that's coming out. Still, people can get in just before Father's Day if they order before Friday or something like that. I've seen it somewhere. Have you got a copy of the book close by or anything like that? You can show us what it looks like.
Yeah. I probably could go grab that if you want me to quickly go grab that. I can do that. You
Yeah,
want me to do that?
Yeah, do that.
I'll do that. And then I'll explain a bit about it. So it's pretty exciting. Sure. Something I'm proud of. So.
Just wait. This is obviously me being a very professional podcaster. Thank you very much.
Here we go.
He's back.
He's back in. All right, so here it is.
All right, so tell us a bit about the book. Yeah.
Alexander the Great. So, man, this is just a local lady we know here in the Illawarra come to me with this. And again, I'm sure we're going to get into this, but this is, this is there's got to be other ways, whether business or whatever it is, you look at that. But, this is so much more than that. The fact that, all right, it is a story about myself, but, it's all about the values, the values of, hard work and things like that. And, doing what needs to be done and things like that. And values that I want to teach my kids. These are values that I try and teach my kids and things that I'm very comfortable sort of expressing to them. Now I get to sort of, spread it to the younger generation, through a book. And so it's exciting. It's cool. I've got myself on the front of a book. Yeah. And not only that, it isn't just, oh yeah, cool. It's just a little bit. I love what it's all about. You know what I mean? And then the fact that I can base them values around my story as well. It means a lot. They did a great job getting this all together, how it is. And man, it's exciting. Like I said, it's very exciting. And yeah, the Father's Day, if you want, obviously, you got them there. Get in before this Friday, and then I'll even try and sign them off, sign as well. So I'm trying to sign as many as I can. So, but yeah, man, it's cool. It's just it's unbelievable. But again, we always talk. I'm sure you probably want to get into, you talk about your brand. People, the brand. Yeah, so. A lot of people look at UFC fighters or fighters, and they look at them as the bad boys or the thugs. And a lot of people play that image. That's what they're all about. They play the Conor McGregor or your Mayweather sort of a blueprint where, talk trash and make the money that way and just hype up fights and all that type of stuff and be disrespectful. And that's a part of their brand or whatever, if you get what I'm trying to say, that's their persona they want to go with. But I mean, that's just not me. You know what I mean? Again, people are like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. I was like, no, I don't, because that's just not me. I'm glad that I could be myself through this whole process, get to the top, being myself. I didn't have to pretend, to be someone, not just to make a few people happy. I could be myself. People want to talk about my brand. I go, and this fits, like this book fits my brand. I want to show the world that, all us fighters, we're not all thugs. We're not all thugs. Mate, to be honest, barely any of them are. You know what I mean? There's very few people that I would say are rough and disrespectful. Even the ones that play disrespectful, sometimes they're just playing it as a part of their image. But there's some of the most respectful people I've ever met have been in this sport, and now I get to sort of show that side of UFC, which obviously through media, and every time, obviously they need a headline, they need something to talk about. So it's always going to be the controversial things and things like that. And I understand that, but that's all people see. Sure. So then and people wonder why we all looked at as thugs. But this is something that shows a different side to UFC fighters. Like this is more of something that, again, it's something I can be proud of. And this is just who I am. And even the UFC, I think the UFC, the sport, needs something like this as well. It's not just me. I think the sport just showing a different side of UFC. So the UFC are actually on board with this book as well. So, they look at it and be like, this is something that that can help their image as well. You know what I mean? Again, we're not all thugs, right? So
Yeah, sure.
I believe that's why they've jumped on board. So that's why they've let us use, obviously, the UFC logos and things like that,
Well,
which
that's
it can
fantastic.
be pretty hard to do.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
pretty
I'm
hard
sure.
to get
Yeah,
that type of stuff. So they're
yeah,
actually helping out with the PR side of things and that with it. It's just good. The sport's been amazing. And again, there's a reason why they want to do it, because it shows a different side of UFC fighters, a different side of this sport that needs to be shown, and something that I'm proud of. So again, it's much more than just a book.
yeah. Awesome, awesome. And that's obviously very very visible to most people when you do your interviews and things like that. As tempting as it may be sometimes to go down that controversial angle, because there's going to be a bigger payday if you start doing some of the shenanigans that other people do. But for you to stay true to yourself says a lot about what you are as a man and as a person, as a parent. Because, like you said, your kids will come one day, go back to see those press conferences, and they're going to say, "Daddy, why did you say that? Or why did you do that?"
Yeah,
So
100%.
you can still be the person that you want to be and succeed, which is fantastic.
100%. I think you need look. I'm not knocking the people that go down that road, that want to that do the trash talking and then do play the bad boy image or whatever it is. Like, I'm not hating on them if that's what they want to do. Cool. I think the sport needs them all.
Yeah,
But I mean, for the fact that sometimes it's looked at from even sometimes the UFC's perspective and fans, that they expect everyone needs to do that. Like, everyone, you need to do this, you need to do that. So what, you want me to just start being disrespectful out of nowhere and just start, it's just not me. And it's something that, again, like, I don't feel like I need to do. At the end of the day, I could do that. And like you said, it might give me a quicker payday. You know what I mean? For the pay-per-views for that fight. Mate, it might get a bit more hype or more people jump on board while it's happening. But mate, like, to be honest, I'll be completely honest with you. People remember winners. I lose. Most people, all right, see you later. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's just how it is. Again, it's probably in a lot of sports, but especially, do I need to just try and impress certain people that don't really care about me, if you could sort of think like this? So a lot of my support, like, I believe that the people that support me for who I am, and like, that's why I believe that they'll always be lifetime fans of me, because they respect who I am and what I live by. So then again, that's good. So I believe, and again, winning goes a long way, and I'm not planning on losing. So people can sit there and say, "Oh, you need to do this, do that." Like, no, I don't, because I'm going to keep winning. Everyone's going to know exactly who I am, because I'm the champ, and I ain't going to lose.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And even just going back to the book quickly, I think it comes at a really good time when, it's tougher. It's tough as ever to be parents to kids and show them right values, especially with all this YouTube, iPads, all this sort of stuff. As you'd probably know, do you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to be a parent, cutting down screen time and all that sort of stuff. So having a book that shows some sort of values about hard work and all that sort of thing, and things that don't come easy. I can't tell you how many different sports my son's tried. You know what I mean? Whereas when we were growing up, you tried the one thing and you sort of did it, and you did it even if you didn't sort of like it. So you break through those barriers. So really special that you've got a book like that that's coming out.
Look, man,
Congratulations.
Yeah, for sure. Look, man. Yeah, again, the times have changed. It is different, but again, like, it's you're right. I mean, it has come at a good time. And that's what I mean. But it's just so much more than just just a children's book. I believe it represents so much more than that. So again, like, just with what you're saying, and then the fact of the values it brings, and then the image to myself, to athletes in general. You know what I mean? Guys that are, you want to commit to this sport as well, like, or commit to any sport, like, it ain't easy. You might just see, people might. Everything's hard. Like, there's no easy way for anything really. Like, there is hard work, and it's always going to be involved. And again, like, that'll show that hard work will go a long way. And again, it's just something I'm proud of anyway. You can see the way I talk about it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Proud of it. I love it. So, what's next, man? What's the plans? What's the story? What's next for the champ?
Yeah, man. Oh, well, we'll just see this division play out. That's the beauty of being the champ as well. So I had my fight.
Yeah.
So now, you know, I can just wait to see who's next. You know, I don't need to rush into anything right now. You've probably seen I don't know if you've seen a couple of videos, but I'm like, you know, I keep telling the contenders, like, hurry up, get your fight out of the way.
Yeah.
Show me who's this number one contender, and I'll see you later. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not running from anyone. Whoever's the guy at the top of that list, or, you know, that number one guy, that's who's going to get that shot. Plain and simple, man. And that's how this sport's always been. I think, again, times are changing with everything. And even in our sport, there's guys that, you know, probably don't deserve title shots, that get title shots, shooting through ranks when they shouldn't be, and all this type of stuff. I don't agree with that. I'm all about, you know, earned, not given. You know, you earn that shot. I ain't going to let it be given to you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to do what I can to not let it be given to you. You earn that shot. If you don't deserve that shot, I don't believe you should get it. And obviously, it's not always completely up to me, but I do have a big say. So let's see who's number one contender. Good on you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We've got just a couple of questions from people that have emailed. One is, what's the most you've ever had you've had to cut for a fight?
Oh yeah, so man, I've done some big cuts. My first weight cut to featherweight was definitely the biggest. It was crazy, actually, when you throw the numbers out there. So I ended up being the night before the weigh-in. And so before, I'll explain it. So I was 7 kilograms out from my weight the night before.
Wow.
So I had to do 3 kilos that night. I had to sweat and obviously not drink nothing and eat very little. And then in the morning, then I had to drive to Albury. I had to drive to Albury from the Illawarra.
Wow.
And then cut the other 3 kilos. Obviously, I lost about 1 kilo over that whole process. So I had to sweat out 6 kilograms of sweat. And, you know, so 7 kilos all up from the night before. But people don't really, like, another thing you got to realize, I was already drawn before then. So I already cut carbs, cut sodiums, water loaded. So I already depleted myself of a bit of water before that. So you could imagine, I was probably about 8-9 kilograms out.
Wow.
At the start of that week. So, you know what I mean? So that's pretty big, especially for 66 kilograms. What's that end? You know, that's like, you know, that's well over 10%.
Wow, that's crazy.
So it's pretty crazy.
That's crazy. And I got a question from a very special person on my Facebook. Her name's Emma, and she wanted me to ask you about your special wings.
Which one was it?
A girl called Emma. And she said to ask about your wings, your famous wings.
Mate, I've got a few. You know, I like it. I get the Weber out. I love the cooking on the coals and smoking some chicken wings. So, mate, I do some pretty good wings. There's some that I'm good at, but I'm starting to grow on the saucy wings. So we've got it's so easy to make as well. I love it.
Nice.
You literally just cook the wings and you just chuck them Baby Ray's. I think it's Baby Ray's buffalo sauce.
Yeah.
And just chuck them straight on after. And it's so easy to make. And
awesome.
Obviously in a nice spicy wings. So that's always good. But I do like marinate my wings. They're good. Mate, I might have to, I don't know, maybe I'll tee up when things start changing, I'll do a big party and everyone can come and I'll cook wings for everybody.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Sounds awesome. Look, man, I appreciate you coming on today. It's been a great chat. This is how we sort of do it, Thinking Man, nice and casual, no real structure, like I said to you. And I want to thank you for having your time. If there's any sort of advice you want to give to anyone, whether they're business or if they're in the NRL or if they're doing anything, is there anything that you can say, do you want to say to them?
At least I explained it sort of earlier, when I said, except, again, if you want to commit to I think this is a good life lesson. Sometimes things are going to get uncomfortable. Accept it. And what is the Nike logo? Just do it.
Yeah.
That is a logo. So again, it's easier said than done, right? It is easier said than done. And it sounds nasty, me just saying it like that. But I believe that goes a long way. So, accept being uncomfortable. Maybe that's something I could say.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it. I know you're busy. I know you're still training, even though you haven't got a fight coming up, you still have to train. That's the bit that people don't see. They just think you turn into a big slob when you're not, but you're still there every morning, you're still there every afternoon, I'm sure. And keep fighting the fight for the Illawarra. We love you, mate. You pack out the pubs every single time. It's hard to get into them now during COVID as well. So, it's just an amazing thing to see the Illawarra just come alive every time you fight. So you should be really proud of yourself. And I want to thank you on behalf of, these pretty much everyone that goes to watch your fights, because it's an amazing atmosphere when you're in those pubs.
Mate, appreciate that, and I appreciate the support. So that brings me on to wanting to thank everyone. So thanks everyone in the Illawarra, actually Australia. Obviously the support's been amazing, especially after my last couple of fights, especially after the last one. Thank you guys so much, and thanks for having me.
All right, thank you very much, mate. Catch you, man.
Legend.
Bye.